Hi, I'm Camilla. I spent nearly $10,000 planning my parents' 40th anniversary trip. Every room, every meal, every leaf in that Vermont inn was chosen by me. But then, just a day before the train left, I got a text. Don't come, we're full. They gave my seat to my sister's friend. No warning, no apology. The next day, they posted smiling photos with her, captioned, finally complete. And while they toasted at the table I paid for, I sat alone with a ticket that still had my name on it. What do you do when your own family edits you out of the story? And what happens when the silence finally ends? I had triple-checked everything: the printouts, the train tickets, the dinner reservation confirmations, all laid out on the coffee table like some kind of sacred offering. 2 fireplace suites at the Berkshire Inn. Vineyard views. A candlelit dinner at the exact restaurant my parents had gone to 40 years ago on their honeymoon. Down to the dessert, a maple creme brulee I found through an archived menu online. I even upgraded their train ride to first class. I'd stay coach. I didn't mind. I'd spent 6 weeks threading every detail together, staying up late between deadlines at work, adjusting my PTO around this trip. Nearly $10,000 of savings, gone without a second thought. I told myself it was worth it. They deserved to be celebrated. The bouquet would arrive at their dinner table around 7 p.m. Fresh asters and goldenrod, tied with a ribbon the same color as Mom's old cardigan. The place cards were handwritten by me, just a quiet touch. I didn't expect applause. I just wanted them to smile, and maybe, for once, look at me not as the stable one, but as someone who still loved them enough to try. It was late morning in Bend, Oregon, the sun washing through the window, painting everything a sleepy amber. I poured myself coffee I didn't need, just something warm to hold as I walked through my checklist one last time. The train would leave in 6 hours. I had time. I glanced down at my phone, halfway expecting a "can't wait" text from Mom or a thumbs-up emoji from Seraphine. Nothing. Not that I needed it, but it would have been nice. Instead, I got a message. Just 3 lines. Camilla, don't come. We're full. Everything's handled. I stared at the screen, blinked, then read it again, slower, as if comprehension worked like a dimmer switch. Don't come. We're full. Everything's handled. My fingers hovered over the screen. Surely this was a mistake, a misfire. She meant something else. Or maybe it was a joke, some awkward way of saying, "Take a break, you've done enough." I waited for a follow-up. There wasn't one. I sat down on the edge of the couch, not quite trusting my legs to hold me up. My coffee cooled in my hands, untouched. My suitcase sat by the door, zipped, ready. Just like me. I didn't cry, not right away. That would have felt too dramatic, too self-centered, something Mom always warned against when I was little. "Don't make things about you," she'd say if I ever looked disappointed at a birthday where Seraphine got more attention. But this time, I wasn't even part of the picture. I scrolled back up and read the message again. The words hadn't changed, but they hit harder the second time around. They were full. Full of what? Gratitude? Space? Aria? I exhaled, slow and deliberate. My chest felt too tight, like I'd been holding my breath for years, and only now realized it. The planner in my lap still had the sticky note. Berkshire Inn, Oct. 7-9. Their favorite. I'd circled the dates like a school kid counting down to a field trip. But this wasn't a trip anymore. It was a lie wrapped in hotel linens and labeled as handled. I opened my photo folder, saw the screenshots of emails, the floral invoice, the train receipt with my name. All that time, all that care. Gone. I still didn't call, didn't text back. What was there to say? What do you tell your family when they've already decided you're replaceable? The train ticket remained on the counter, half folded. My name printed clearly across the top. Reserved. Confirmed. I looked at it for a long time. The ink didn't fade, but something in me did. Outside, the wind picked up. Leaves rustled in that dry, fluttery way they do in early fall. a quiet applause that somehow made everything feel more hollow. I sat there until dusk, watching the light shift across my living room floor, watching the hands of the clock turn with no concern for who was included and who wasn't. The bag by the door didn't move. Neither did I. But something in my chest did. A crack I couldn't ignore. Not this time. Because somewhere out there, my parents were getting ready for a celebration I created, in a room I chose, at a table I paid for. And someone else, someone who hadn't lifted a finger, was sitting in my seat. The clock on my wall ticked into late afternoon, and the apartment had grown colder, though I hadn't touched the thermostat. The suitcase was still there, upright by the door, like it didn't get the message. I hadn't moved from the couch since that text. The silence had done a better job than any scream ever could. I didn't cry, but I hadn't blinked much either. I was halfway into making myself stand up, maybe pour another cup of that now bitter coffee, when my phone vibrated. Not a call, not a message. Instagram. I hesitated, thumb hovering over the notification. Then I tapped. The boomerang loaded instantly. A loop of 3 women waving at a train platform draped in orange and red leaves. My mother, Seraphine, and Aria. Aria. She was front and center, holding a latte in one hand and grinning like she belonged there. I could see the edge of the train behind them, the same one I'd spent 2 hours booking to match their original honeymoon route. My name wasn't tagged. The caption underneath hit harder than the text from Mom. Family trip, finally complete. That line landed like a slap. Not because it was cruel. No, it was worse than that. It was intentional. A declaration. A rewriting. I sat back, phone still in hand, breath trapped somewhere behind my ribs. They didn't even try to hide it. No, wish you were here, or we miss you. Just complete. Whole. Without me. Aria looked like she'd always been part of the family. You'd never guess she once used my toothbrush without asking, while filming some throwaway TikTok in my bathroom. You'd never guess she'd lied to my face about just being friends with the man I was set to marry. I remembered that night like it was stitched into my skin. I had just gotten back from a late client meeting. Aria was in the kitchen, laughing with him. Too comfortable, too familiar. When I finally asked, they called me insecure. Don't be dramatic, Camila. We're just close. 2 weeks later, I found her necklace in his glove box. I hadn't told my family. Not because I wanted to protect Aria, but because I already knew what they'd say. That I was overreacting. That I needed to learn to let things go. That maybe it was just a misunderstanding. No one ever said that to Seraphine when she lost it over an overcooked turkey. And now, here she was. Aria. Front and center in the photo that should have had me in it. With my mom's arm around her shoulder, like she'd been born into the family instead of sliding her way into it like spilled wine into carpet. I scrolled through the rest of the pictures. One of Aria and Seraphine clinking glasses. Another of Vera smiling, with a floral arrangement in the background. The same bouquet I had special ordered. Down to the asters. Not one picture of me. Not even a hint I existed. I wanted to say something. To text Seraphine, to call Mom, to scream. But I didn't. I just stared at the screen, at all these people I loved. Laughing, posing, building memories with someone who had built nothing for them. No, not nothing. She'd built herself a place. Out of my silence. Out of my generosity. Out of my damn seat. My thumb hovered over the screen again. I could have left a comment. Could have made a scene. But that wasn't me. That was never me. Instead, I held the phone for another moment, watching Aria's laughter loop over and over like a bad joke you hear too many times. Then I closed the app and without ceremony deleted it from my phone. Not to punish anyone, not even to disconnect. Just to protect whatever pieces of me I still had left from being chipped away by people who didn't notice I was breaking. The apartment grew darker as the sun dipped lower. I didn't turn on the lights. I reached for my planner on the coffee table, flipped to the trip page. There, in looping penmanship, I had once written, "Their favorite season, make it unforgettable." I scratched it out slowly, one line at a time, until it was unreadable. Then I wrote underneath it, "They didn't forget me, they replaced me." I woke up the next morning to a beam of sunlight cutting across the rug, my neck stiff from sleeping on the couch. I hadn't meant to fall asleep there. I just never made it to bed. The weight of the silence from last night was still heavy in the room, and my body ached in that specific way that comes from being both emotionally hollow and physically numb. I shuffled to the kitchen, made coffee mostly out of habit, and sat down at the counter. My phone was still off, face down beside the sink, but my laptop was open. I didn't plan on checking anything, but my fingers moved anyway, opening up the browser before I could talk myself out of it. And there it was. Tagged photos. Dozens of them. At first, I scrolled past quickly, thinking maybe it would sting less that way, but my eyes kept catching details I couldn't ignore. The fireplace suite, exactly the one I paid extra for. The soft amber lighting from the restaurant I handpicked. The place cards. My handwriting still visible in one of the shots, slanted cursive on cream cardstock. And there, front and center, Aria again, laughing beside Vera like they shared inside jokes, holding up a glass of champagne at the very table I reserved, toasting with my mother and Seraphine like this trip had been hers all along. Her hand rested lightly on Vera's shoulder in one shot, like she belonged there. No caption, no tag, not one mention of my name. I kept scrolling, stopping when I saw the bouquet in the background. The one I chose, asters and goldenrod, tied with the same sage green ribbon I remembered Mom once said, reminded her of her wedding dress. That little comment she made months ago over a lukewarm brunch was something I'd filed away and used to plan this whole celebration. They didn't even try to hide it. They took everything I built and painted over it with someone else's brush. I closed the browser, stood up, and walked to the window. My apartment was quiet, the leaves outside slowly drifting down in their final dance before winter. As I stood there, the past came rushing in like a slow leak through cracked walls. I was 26 when I got engaged. He was charming in that lazy kind of way, never too ambitious, but always affectionate enough to make you question your own instincts. Aria and I had been friends then, or at least I thought we were. She had a way of making herself small around me, harmless, supportive. But one night, I came home early and found her laughing on my porch with him. Their eyes met too quickly. She left her scarf on his chair. When I asked, she brushed it off like I was being too intense. And when it finally unraveled, when I saw the texts, the late-night calls, she didn't apologize. She shrugged and said, "Things happen." The family's response: "Don't dwell, Camila. That kind of thing ruins people." No one told her she was the one who caused the ruin. Now she was back. Different context, same script. My phone buzzed, pulling me back to the present. A notification from Seraphine's page. I opened it. "So grateful to have been able to make this weekend happen for Mom and Dad, Stitcher's Family Matters." The photo attached was the dinner scene again. My table, my plan, her credit. My jaw clenched so tight it ached. They'd written me out like I was a placeholder. I stared at that picture, at Seraphine's wide smile and perfectly manicured hands resting beside the bouquet I paid for. I didn't text her. I didn't comment. There wasn't a single word I could say that wouldn't be twisted, minimized, or dismissed. Instead, I shut the app and walked to my suitcase, still untouched by the door. I unzipped it slowly, not to unpack, but just to hear the sound. Something grounded, something real. My planner sat on top, right where I'd placed it days ago. I opened to the page I had decorated with post-it notes and hand-drawn hearts. There was the itinerary, the meal plan, the spa reservations, all of it. My labor in ink. I flipped to the final page and picked up a pen. In a blank space, I wrote, "They used everything but my name." Then I closed it and pressed the planner back into the suitcase. I didn't make coffee this time. I didn't need to sit down. I just stood there, surrounded by the wreckage of my own good intentions, and finally let my breath go. The next morning, I didn't scroll. I didn't refresh. I didn't even look at my phone. I just packed a single overnight bag, grabbed my coat, and headed for the station. The train ride to Stowe took most of the day. I stared out the window as the scenery shifted from quiet suburbs to fiery mountainsides, dotted with red barns and pumpkin stands. I didn't bring headphones. I didn't need distractions. I had a reason to be there, even if I was the only one who believed it. By the time I stepped off the train, the sun had dipped low, casting long gold shadows across the gravel path. The air was crisp, sharper than I remembered. Vermont in October always had that bite. I didn't take a cab. I walked the half-mile stretch to the resort through a winding path lined with sugar maples, their leaves like a kaleidoscope under my boots. With every step, I thought, "This is mine. I made this happen." As I neared the main courtyard, I could already hear laughter, familiar voices echoing from the garden patio I'd reserved. I paused behind a row of hedges, just long enough to take it in. Vera sipping wine with her hand on Aria's arm, Seraphine posing with a cocktail, staff floating by with trays of appetizers. No one noticed me. I moved quietly toward the entrance, adjusting the strap on my shoulder bag. I wasn't dressed for a party. Slacks, a navy blouse, a light scarf. I hadn't planned to be seen. I just needed to see. Just as I stepped into the lobby, a man in a vest and name tag stopped me with a friendly nod. "You with the catering team?" I blinked. "Excuse me?" "The banquet group. You're a late arrival?" It took everything in me not to flinch. I smiled, small and tight. "No, I'm not staff." "Oh, sorry," he said, stepping aside. I walked past without correcting him. What was the point? I had bought the damn tableware. They didn't know me then. They didn't know me now. As I rounded the corner to the East Wing entrance, a familiar figure blocked the doorway, Vera. She wasn't smiling. She looked tired, like the kind of tired that wasn't from walking too far, but from trying too hard to maintain control. Her eyes scanned me, then flicked to my bag. "Camila," I stopped, hands loose at my sides. "I told you not to come," she said, voice calm but flat. "We agreed." "No," I replied. "You decided. I was never asked." She let out a shallow sigh and stepped in closer, her voice dropping. "Don't make this harder than it needs to be. This weekend isn't about you." I held her gaze. "That's the part you've always misunderstood. It never was." Her jaw tensed. "Please don't embarrass the family. We're trying to enjoy this." I looked past her into the dining room, where Aria twirled her wine glass, laughing at something Seraphine whispered. The lighting was soft, warm, exactly how I envisioned it when I booked the space. My mother's favorite shade of gold ran across the tablecloths. The centerpieces bloomed just as ordered. They were enjoying it all right. Every detail, every piece of it that came from me. I didn't argue. I didn't push past her. I just nodded once, stepped back, and turned around. The walk down the hill felt longer than I remembered. The trees whispered, swaying as if they knew what had just happened, but had no comfort left to offer. My boots crunched over the leaves I'd hoped to walk through with them. Not as a guest, as a daughter. Back at the station, the bench was empty. I sat, pulled out my phone, and finally turned it on. Notifications flooded in. Texts, emails, group messages, and at the top, a new Instagram post. A photo of Vera and Aria, arms linked, smiles wide. The caption read, "Love this family more than anything." I didn't blink. I didn't scroll. I whispered, to no one but myself, "They chose her. I choose me." By the time I got back to my apartment, the sky had shifted from amber to charcoal. I didn't bother turning on the lights. I left my overnight bag by the door, untouched, and dropped my coat on the chair without a second glance. The quiet in the room didn't feel peaceful. It felt like a reminder of what I saw, what I heard, and what I was no longer willing to accept. I stood at the kitchen sink, pouring water into the kettle like it mattered, like it might steady my hands. Outside, the wind rattled the windows just enough to feel personal. I sat down at the table, sipping tea I didn't want, and stared at the blank space across from me. A seat. Always a seat. Always one I never got. It was around 9 p.m. when my phone buzzed on the counter. I ignored it at first. Then another came, and another. Eventually, I walked over and picked it up, expecting maybe a text from Seraphine, half-hearted and hours too late. Instead, it was a message from my cousin Gina. "Hey, have you seen this?" There was a link, a TikTok. I paused. My thumb hovered. Then I tapped. It was a short video. Aria filming herself, surprise, surprise, giving a behind-the-scenes tour of the dinner setup. Vera could be heard off-camera, sharp but careless. "Who told her to book it anyway? She's always doing too much." The screen went still. My ears didn't. The clip looped. Once. Twice. "She's always doing too much." That wasn't just a sentence. That was the way my mother has defined me for years. The unspoken critique behind every strained smile and guilt-laced thank you. It was never gratitude. It was toleration, thinly veiled. And now it wasn't veiled at all. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I didn't throw the phone like in the movies. I just sat down slowly, placed it on the table, and stared at it like it owed me something. Maybe it did. The comments were already piling in beneath the video. Yikes! Did she just say that about her own daughter? This woman sounds cold. No wonder Camilla didn't show up. I didn't know these people, but they saw what I'd been swallowing for years in 10 seconds flat, and they didn't try to explain it away. They called it what it was. I didn't share it. I didn't repost. I let the algorithm do its thing. I sat in the eye of the storm and, for once, didn't flinch. An hour later, I opened my laptop and pulled up my emails. I drafted one to the hotel's event coordinator. "Hi, Nancy. Please transfer all remaining communication and coordination to the new point of contact listed below. I won't be participating further. Thank you, Camilla." Attached was Seraphine's email. If she wanted the spotlight, she could keep the logistics too. I hit send. I stared at the confirmation for a few seconds, then closed the laptop and leaned back. No one texted me. No apology followed. No call from Vera. No apology-laced paragraph from Seraphine. And I knew none was coming. But something was shifting. This time, the silence wasn't mine to hold. I looked around the apartment. Not searching, just noticing. The suitcase still by the door. The tea cooling beside me. My phone on the table, still vibrating occasionally with new likes, new shares, new strangers validating what I'd lived in secret. My eyes drifted to the planner I'd left on the counter. I reached for it, opened to the page that held the trip details, and carefully tore it out. Not in anger, just in finality. I folded the page once, then twice, and dropped it in the trash. They wanted a celebration without me. Now they had one, minus the glue that held it together. I poured the rest of my tea down the sink, rinsed the mug, and stood in the quiet that finally felt earned. I'd whispered my way through every slight, every omission, every moment I was erased. Not anymore. I warned them. Now I was done whispering. Morning light poured through my blinds, soft and gray, the kind of light that doesn't ask for attention, but insists on being noticed. I stirred from the couch again. Seems like that was my new place to sleep these days. The apartment was still, save for the hum of the fridge and the occasional creak of the heater kicking in. I hadn't made coffee yet. My laptop sat open on the dining table from the night before. I hadn't touched it since sending that final email to the hotel, cutting my name from every remaining connection to the event. As I padded barefoot toward the kitchen, my phone vibrated across the counter. First one buzz, then two, then five, back to back. I picked it up, my stomach already tightening. Missed calls, voicemails, group texts, Seraphine, Vera. Even a number I didn't recognize, Aria's assistant probably. Every message had the same frantic undercurrent. "There's an issue with the event insurance. Can you confirm the payment method? We need to talk, urgently." No one said hi. No one said, "Camilla, we're sorry." They weren't reaching out because they missed me. They were calling because the consequences of erasing me finally caught up to them. I poured myself a glass of water, leaned on the counter, and read through each message one by one. Every single one focused on logistics. Who signed the vendor contracts? Whose name was on the payment agreements? Who was listed on the liability release? Me. Of course it was me. I was the safety net, the default, the one who always handled the mess after the party ended. That's what they'd turned me into, an invisible custodian of their image. Not anymore. I opened my laptop, pulled up the template from my lawyer's office, a document we'd drafted months ago during an unrelated property dispute. I had nearly forgotten about it until now. The words were already there, clean and simple. To whom it may concern, effective immediately, I, Camila Reyes, relinquish all financial, legal, and organizational responsibility related to the 40th anniversary event held in Stowe, Vermont. Any continued use of my name, accounts, or correspondence for said event will be considered unauthorized and subject to legal review. Sincerely, CR. I attached it to a new email. Subject line: Formal withdrawal notice. No body text, no pleasantries. I typed in the recipients: Vera, Seraphine, the hotel manager, and the event insurance coordinator. CC'd my lawyer. Then I hit send. The silence that followed was immediate, like the quiet right after a thunderclap. I closed the laptop, turned off my phone, and stood in my kitchen, letting the moment settle. This wasn't petty. This wasn't about revenge. It was clarity. Finally, painfully earned. 20 minutes later, the house phone rang. The landline I rarely gave out. I let it ring twice, then picked up. Vera's voice came through, sharp and clipped. "I can't believe you're doing this to your own family." I didn't speak. I let the silence linger. She continued, "You're making a scene. You always do this. Just when things are going well, you find a way to ruin it." I exhaled, steady and slow. "No," I said. "You made the mess. I'm just stepping out of it." There was a beat of pause, just enough to feel her recalibrate. "Well," she snapped, "when this whole thing falls apart, don't come crying back." I smiled, not bitter, just tired. "I haven't come to you for anything in years, Vera. You just didn't notice." I hung up before she could respond. That was the last call I took that day. I spent the afternoon cleaning, not out of anger, but because clarity likes clean corners. I boxed up the leftover trip materials, the backup menu plans, the extra invitation cards I'd printed just in case someone unexpected came along. I labeled the box Archive, slid it into the hallway closet, and shut the door. I didn't need to see it again, but I didn't need to destroy it either. It happened. I gave, they took. Then I stopped. That night, I cooked a quiet dinner, read a chapter of a book I'd been putting off, and lit a candle I'd bought months ago but never used. The apartment smelled like pine and orange peel. Just before bed, I checked my inbox one last time. Nothing from Seraphine, no reply from Vera, no apology from anyone. And for the first time in a long time, I wasn't waiting for one. It was Wednesday afternoon when the shift started. I had just returned from a short walk around the block, needing air after 2 days of dodging calls and setting legal boundaries. The leaves had begun to rot along the sidewalks, golden on top, brown and soggy underneath. They crunched and squished beneath my boots, much like my emotions. Soft, damp, but still layered with something dry and sharp. I was halfway through reheating a bowl of soup when a ping came from my laptop. A notification from a local Vermont business page I followed during the planning phase, mostly to track foliage reports and guest reviews at the inn. I clicked. It was a public post from the Berkshire Inn account, not from the front desk. From Nancy, the event coordinator I'd worked with for over a month. Gratitude post. Shout out to Camila Reyes, who worked tirelessly to plan last weekend's private event for the Reyes family. Every reservation, detail, and arrangement was coordinated by her with grace and clarity. It was an honor to collaborate with someone so thoughtful. The words didn't sting. They didn't make me tear up. They made me feel real, seen. Within minutes, the post began circulating. Former guests from the inn commented, resharing it with screenshots of Vera's dismissive video from the TikTok that still hadn't died down. Strangers weighed in. So Camilla was the planner and the one who got cut out? Yikes! This is the part of family stories no one wants to talk about. How easy it is to pretend someone never existed. And the most biting one of all, she didn't get forgotten, she got replaced. I didn't respond. I didn't click like. I simply sat down and watched the narrative unravel itself, knot by knot. By late evening, I decided it was time to finish what I'd started. I pulled out the manila envelope I'd prepared over the weekend, sealed and unaddressed until now. Inside, a full packet of itemized receipts, catering contracts, venue deposits, floral invoices, a printed guest list I drafted, and the seating chart they clearly ignored. On top, I placed a single note card, handwritten, no frills. I'm no longer the stand-in for a family that doesn't stand with me. I addressed it to the house I grew up in, not because I thought anyone would read it together, but because I wanted it to land where it began. Thursday morning, I walked it to the post office myself, mailed it certified, tracked it, let the silence travel in the form of proof. By Friday, I had 3 missed calls from Seraphine, 2 from Vera, and 1 voicemail from Aria's number, which I deleted without listening. Later that day, a mutual acquaintance tagged me in a live stream clip, Vera speaking at some women's brunch group about family unity and grace through challenges. I watched her lips twist into a rehearsed smile as someone leaned over and whispered in her ear mid-sentence. Her smile flickered, just for a second. I closed the video. No more commentary, no more conversations. I didn't owe anyone a version of the truth that had already spoken for itself. That night, after dinner, and 2 pages of reading I barely remembered, I walked to the bookshelf. The planner was there, beige cover, bent corner, the one I started this whole thing with. I flipped it open. There it was, a sticky note in blue ink. Planned surprise for Mom and Dad, Berkshire Inn. I took a pen from the jar, crossed out their names with 3 deliberate lines. Then I wrote beneath it, me. Saturday morning settled over the apartment like fog, quiet, stubborn, and impossible to ignore. I stood in the kitchen, stirring a pot of oatmeal I didn't want, my eyes unfocused, my mind elsewhere. The planner still sat on the table, page crossed out and rewritten, the ink still faintly wet. The doorbell rang once. I didn't answer. No one I wanted to hear from used that door. Later that afternoon, I was sorting through a basket of mail when a message buzzed in from Gina, the cousin who always seemed to know everything 2 days before everyone else. Cam, the text read, you need to see this, from the brunch. Attached was a short video clip. Vera standing at a podium, giving what looked like a speech to a local women's club. Neatly dressed, polished, her smile mechanical, voice clipped in that rehearsed way she used when she was trying to sound warm without giving anything away. She was always a bit distant, Vera was saying, hands folded loosely on the podium. You know how some children are, quiet, reserved. Seraphine took charge of most family things. She's always had a gift for organizing. I froze, played it again, slower. She was always a bit distant. There it was. I stared at the screen long after the video ended, my hand resting on the edge of the table to keep me upright. Distant. The word echoed, sharp and dismissive. She didn't say my name. She didn't need to. I walked to the bookshelf in the hallway closet and pulled down a photo album I hadn't opened in years. The spine cracked as I laid it flat on the table. Page after page of family photos, glossy and staged. In every one, I was either off to the side or cropped so tightly it looked like I'd wandered into someone else's frame. Easter brunch, Seraphine center stage, me in the background, half behind a vase. Birthday party at age 12, cake in front of Seraphine, my hand barely visible at the edge of the table. School awards? The certificate was mine, but the note underneath, "Thanks to Seraphine for helping her study." Invisible wasn't just a feeling, it was a strategy. I sat back, breath tight in my chest. I thought about all the times I'd taken the second shift at the diner in high school so Mom wouldn't have to cancel the cable. All the times I'd covered Seraphine's rent when her social media coaching business flopped. The times I'd shown up, fixed things, paid bills, remembered dates, and no one said anything. But Vera remembered to say I was distant. I walked to my desk and pulled open the bottom drawer. My old planning notebook was tucked underneath a stack of tax documents and expired coupons. I opened it and flipped to the page I knew would be there. A sticky note in the corner, pale yellow and curling at the edges. In my handwriting, the words, "Hope they'll finally be proud of me." I didn't hesitate. I pulled the note off, crumpled it in my fist, and walked it to the sink. The flame from the gas burner caught it fast, curling it into smoke and ash in less than 5 seconds. I watched it burn. Not in anger, in relief. I'd spent years thinking that if I just tried harder, planned better, was quieter, more responsible, more patient, maybe they'd notice. They did notice. They just chose someone else to celebrate. I turned back to my desk, pulled out a clean sheet from the back of the notebook, and wrote a single sentence across the top. They didn't forget me. They needed me silent. I paused, underlined it, then added, "That version of me is gone." I leaned back in my chair, breathing easier than I had in weeks. Later that evening, after dinner and a warm shower, I opened my laptop, typed in solo retreats in Vermont, filtered by price and availability. I chose a quiet inn in Brattleboro, wooden cabins, fire pits, no family packages. I clicked book now, just one guest. The train eased to a stop at the same small station where I'd stood a year ago, suitcase in hand, heart full of hope, only to be left behind. This time, there was no suitcase, just a canvas shoulder bag and a hardcover book I'd meant to read for months. I stepped down slowly, feet crunching over familiar gravel. The air in Stowe was just as crisp, the sugar maples still flaming red and gold like they had been that October morning. But this time, I wasn't looking for anyone. I wasn't waiting to be included. I was simply arriving. I didn't rush. I walked with quiet purpose through the town, past shops with flannel in the windows, and porch displays full of mums and hay bales. The smell of cinnamon hung in the air from a nearby bakery. A couple with matching scarves asked me where the bookstore was. I pointed them in the right direction without hesitation, smiling. My voice was calm. I didn't stutter or second guess. I knew exactly where I was and why I was here. I passed the inn where the celebration had happened last year. The lights glowed warm in the windows, soft shadows moving behind the curtains. For a moment, I stopped. Not to linger in pain, but to honor how far I'd come. Back then, I would have looked for them inside, peering through glass, wondering if they'd seen me. Now? I kept walking. The cafe across from the inn hadn't changed. Same green awnings, same flower boxes under the windows. I pushed the door open, the bell overhead jingling softly. There were only a few people inside, 2 older women chatting in the corner, a young man with headphones and a laptop. I chose a window seat, the one I'd imagined myself sitting in last year. The server smiled at me. "What can I get you?" "Chamomile tea," I said, "and no rush." She nodded and disappeared into the back. I set my book down on the table, but didn't open it. My eyes drifted outside, to the sidewalk where yellow leaves tumbled lazily in the breeze. For once, I didn't feel the pull to document it. No photos, no messages. My phone was off, tucked deep in my bag. I didn't need to be reachable, not now. Across the street, someone stepped out of the inn. For a second, I thought it might be Vera. The posture was familiar. The coat, too. But when the woman turned, it wasn't her. Oddly, I wasn't disappointed. Just unaffected. In the weeks following my withdrawal, I'd stopped checking their social media. I didn't care about their curated moments or which caption Aria used that week to paint herself as family. Let them post, let them spin. I had facts. And more importantly, I had peace. My tea arrived, warm and fragrant. I cupped it in both hands and took the first sip slowly. Last year, I hadn't even made it inside to order. I pulled out a new notebook from my bag, leather-bound, deep burgundy, a gift to myself. I opened to the first page and wrote, "I don't owe anyone silence anymore, and I owe myself everything." I let the pen linger after the period, then flipped the page. Blank. Possibility stretched in front of me, unclaimed and wide open. Later, I wandered the trail behind the inn, the same one I had hoped to walk with my parents, with Seraphine, maybe even with Aria keeping a few feet of polite distance. That version of the story never happened, but this one did. I passed trees that arched over the path like old friends, leaves spinning down gently like confetti. No one clapped, no one watched, and I didn't miss it. I'd spent most of my life building chairs at tables where no one planned to make space for me. Now I was building my own table, my own quiet joy. When the sun dipped behind the hills, I turned back toward the road. The inn lights flickered on. I headed toward my cabin, small, simple, mine. No need to announce my arrival, no need to justify my presence. This seat wasn't given, I claimed it. Some stories don't end with fireworks. Sometimes they end with quiet clarity and a door you choose not to walk back through. If you've ever been erased, replaced, or overlooked in your own family, you know that healing doesn't always come from closure. It comes from choosing yourself, even if no one else does. Have you ever stepped away from a role you were never truly appreciated in? Share your story in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe for more real-life stories that dig deep, stir something real, and maybe, just maybe, help someone else feel seen.